This is a hell of a way for a distillery to mark the end of one era and the beginning of a new. This is the special edition Samhain whiskey from Dingle. Let me tell you about it. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and like I said, this is the Dingle Samhain whiskey. So let me get it into the glass and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So first off, what is Samhain? Well, Samhain is one of the Celtic fire festivals. It marks the end or like the death of the sun god and kind of marks the entry into winter, into the time of kind of dead people. That's why we actually celebrate Samhain on the 31st of October, which is now known as Halloween. So it's kind of the time of year where the spirits can cross over. It's definitely the end of one part of the year and entering into the next part of the year. It's part of the wheel of the year. So if you imagine a Celtic calendar being made up of a wheel, it's divided into 8 segments. Each segment is kind of marked by a specific holiday, whether that's the equinoxes, so the longest or the shortest day of the years, or a fire festival like Samhain, or other festivals around harvests. The wheel of the year divides it up into 8 separate kind of time periods, and Samhain is one of those periods. And that's why Dingle have decided to mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another with Samhain. So if you're not familiar with Dingle, up to this point, they were releasing a lot of kind of limited edition once-off batches that would never be repeated, but now they've started releasing some core products that are always going to be on the market. No matter what they do, these core products are always going to be there. So Dingle are kind of ending that time of batches, ending that time of limited runs, but they're starting a new chapter of these core whiskies, and what better way to celebrate that than with some fun whiskies. So like I said, the wheel of the year is divided into 8 different segments, and Dingle are going to be releasing 8 different whiskies, 8 different kind of special interesting whiskies over the next 2 years. So you can imagine one roughly every 3 months or so, you'll be getting a new fun Dingle whiskey. And based on the wheel of the year, which we can already see on the bottle here, we can see the Samhain kind of symbol here is already here, so we can already guess what the next festivals are going to be and when these whiskies are going to be released. So Dingle have a nice kind of plan for the next 2 years to have a couple of kind of special edition whiskies. They are limited edition. I think there's only 10,000 bottles of this one, and I can definitely imagine this being very interesting to collectors. If you can collect all 8 bottles in the wheel of the year, this is a good way to start off. It's a very nice whiskey. If you want to collect those bottles going forward, definitely grab it because it's just going to go up and up in price. So what is this whiskey? Well, it's a triple distilled single malt Irish whiskey. It spent about 5 years in bourbon casks aging, and then it spent another 2 years being finished in Moscatel casks. So you can say for yourself if 2 years is a finishing process or if that's part of the aging process. Either way, it's had a huge influence on the whiskey. So Moscatel is a very sweet wine where the grapes are actually dried in the sun to dry them out a little bit and concentrate all that sugar, so you get a whole lot of sweetness in this wine. The whiskey also comes in at 50.5% alcohol, which is 101 proof, so has a nice bit of weight, a nice bit of heat, and really does deliver a lot of flavor. So that's enough talking, let's go in for the nose. Cheers. Immediately you do notice that Dingle DNA. So if you're not familiar with kind of the way malt whiskey is produced, different distilleries have different kind of characteristics. Bushmills definitely does, and Dingle definitely does. It has this kind of earthy, herbal, kind of fresh note to the maltiness coming through, and that's there in spades, but also that wine influence is very, very apparent. It's, if you pour it immediately and then you take a sniff, it's a little bit hard to get that wine influence, but you can let it sit for a second and you come back, you get this really nice kind of rich red berry note coming through. It really does smell like a Moscatel wine, like a really sweet, kind of almost like a syrupy red berry note. Yeah, it's definitely like raspberries, like those sweet, really juicy red berries coming through. There's a little bit of citrus, kind of like lemon juice. I wouldn't say like a lemon peel where you get those citrus oils. It's more like a lemon juice, more like that kind of rich lemon juice coming through, obviously. There's a little bit of the heat from the ABV, not too much, it's not blowing out my nose, but it is a nice, you can kind of tell there's a lot of presence in the glass. And I'm also getting a bit of black pepper, like cracked black peppercorns coming through. Definitely getting a nice little bit of spice. So let's go in for the palate and see how that develops. Immediately, it's rich with malt, with really nice, like a good heavy malty influence coming through. There's a good bit of heat from the ABV, definitely mouth tingling. Very sweet, bit of caramel, bit of spiciness, maybe cloves and black peppers, more into baking spices than it was on the nose. Definitely nice bit of heat, kind of maybe almost biscuity note coming through, very nice. I'm gonna go in for another sip and see how that changes, because it does have a nice kind of evolution through the palate into the mid palate. Cheers. Definitely, as I let it sit, you definitely get that heat up front. You get the ABV, you get the malt, you get a bit of oak coming through. But then as you let it sit, as you let it kind of work its way through your palate, you get a kind of a biscuity characteristic coming through. You get a kind of a buttery, almost kind of butterscotch, toffee, caramel sweetness coming through, kind of creaminess coming through. And you get like a nice stewed red berries kind of underneath everything. Like as it sits in your palate, you get that kind of note. It's almost like a berry crumble. So if you imagine those stewed red berries underneath, like raspberries, strawberries, cherries underneath, with this kind of biscuity base, this sweet buttery biscuit up top, and then that's kind of crunchy, is kind of baked, maybe a touch of nuttiness as well coming through. Very nice, very kind of full flavored, and does have a nice journey through the palate. So I'm gonna go in again, but we're gonna top it to finish. Cheers. Okay, it's nice, it's long, it's spicy. As you breathe, it gets a bit softer. I wouldn't say the flavor disappears, but the flavors get a bit softer. As you breathe, you get kind of more of that buttery note I was talking about. You get more of those kind of red berry notes coming through. Definitely a nice journey into the finish. Like I've still got some nice tingly spice, again with the cloves, cinnamon, black pepper, bit of oak spice coming through as well. Nice kind of development of the whiskey. Like it's all building on that Moscatel finish. I think that Moscatel finish, because it was 2 years in those Moscatel casks, they had quite the influence on the whiskey. Definitely does carry through a lot of flavor. This is a very, very nice whiskey. So it might be one of my favorite whiskeys I've tried from Dingle. Very nice, very rich. It's not gonna beat, for me at least, it's not gonna beat the port aged whiskey batch 6, because I do love a port finished whiskey, and that whiskey was aged entirely in port. And so it was very nice, very rich, full flavored, but this is a good close second. It's very nice. It's 50.5% alcohol, so it does deliver a huge amount of flavor. It is €85, so it is a good bit more expensive than their core kind of whiskey range, but it is, like I said, limited edition, and it's part of a collection. So I can definitely imagine maybe if you don't get this, you might kick yourself down the line when you see what else is in the collection. Me personally, I know I'm definitely going to be picking up the rest of the bottles in the collection if I can, so I can complete that and I can have a full set, and I can definitely maybe enjoy seeing the journey the distiller was taking from the first bottle all the way through. Also, speaking of the distiller, this is the first whiskey from Dingle that has the distiller's signature on it, Graham Cool, right there. So it's kind of a good, again, marking of a new chapter of the distillery, because now the whiskey has just taken on a new life of its own. They're able to put out their own whiskey. Soon there'll be whiskeys that are 10-year-old, and they have some nice, good, rich Irish whiskey on the market that's from new distilleries. So there you have it. This is a very nice whiskey. It's still available in a few places. I know there's some bottles that are making their way internationally that you'll be able to find in different stores internationally. I know in Ireland it's still available in a few shops that do ship internationally. So if you want to give this whiskey a try, I definitely recommend it. It's very nice, very enjoyable. I'm going to keep on enjoying this. If you want to see more reviews, I put out reviews on Wednesdays, I put out cocktail recipes on Fridays, and I put out fun videos every now and then on Mondays. So if you want to see more, make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.